Hi folks, welcome to another segment of 12-Step Insights. Today we're looking at Step 6. Before we do that, I'd like to remind you that down here in this corner over here, you'll see a little subscribe button. Please subscribe so you can get the rest of the steps as I put them out, as well as any new material. Feel free at any time to share these videos. The more people they help, the better. If you're watching on Facebook, if you would like and share, that'd be great too. But if you are on YouTube, please feel free to comment. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like to have discussed in a similar video, please let me know. I'll be happy to do them. The books that I have written, Addiction Why They Use and Addiction Am I Powerless, are both available at these addresses up here, and there's probably an address up here soon enough for you to go to as well at addictioninthefamily.com, where you can also see some links there to some other materials, how to purchase the books and stuff. So with that being said, we'll get right into it here with the sixth step. The sixth step, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I think it's important for us to remember always to look at the perspective of where the steps came from and how they evolved. Again, these were practices that the early members were doing. They didn't have a sixth step. They had this thing that they did in the way they did it, and there was probably an order that eventually ended up occurring, when and where they would do it and how they would look at it. It's important to maybe view the steps as being benchmarks, where each time you reach one, then you can build up on the next one, and then you can build on the next one, and then you can build on the next one. We get that first step foundation, we get the second step foundation, and we build up sequentially. Remember, the first step identifies the problem, that we were powerless over alcohol or drugs, that our lives become unmanageable. And the second identifies the solution, that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. In working with Step 6, we're going to be talking a little bit about how that power does that, restores to sanity, that is. So the third, if you work 3 through 11, you get 12, which is the spiritual awakening as a result. So again, we'll get right into it. But to think about Bill, when Bill was working this step and when he was writing the book, he hit a point where it just seemed to him like it could go in so many different directions that he didn't really know what to do. Remember, the steps didn't have numbers when Bill did them. So sometimes they were different in order and sometimes they lasted longer. When he tried to write them down and narrow them down, it became difficult. There are some tapes with Bill saying that he didn't know which direction to go in, and that the sixth step could go in so many different directions, and the seventh step could go in so many different directions, that he got confused about how to write it, and he actually called up a guy that he saw as his spiritual guide, a guy named Father Dowling, and who eventually did his fifth step with it, about 5 years of recovery. But he called up Father Dowling, and he said to him, look, this could go in so many different ways. I just don't know how to present it. I don't know how to put it together in packages so that people can understand it without me drawing too much of a Christian bend on it or anything like that. And so his overall advice that he got was just tell them what it might look like. And if you look at the 12th step, or you look at these steps in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous around the 6th and the 7th step, he actually says in there, I believe, and it might look something like this. So he literally was just trying to give a brief example. The 6th and 7th step were sort of new, but he knew they were a part of the process. So he really hadn't formalized it and didn't have a lot of thought about it at the time that he was trying to put out the book. The book was written fairly quickly as far as book writing goes. So he had this idea about turning things over. You get in the 4th step where you're talking about making this inventory, and then the 5th step where we're looking at the nature of our wrongs. It's like, what do we then do with this stuff? And we talk about in the 5th step about admit it to God, to ourselves, but admit it to God. So in this step, it's a furtherance, it seems, of the 5th step, which is getting to this conversation with God. And again, the step, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. There's a very large order here when we say entirely ready, because I don't think that most people are entirely ready. And I think that some people spend a lot of years and decades in recovery and aren't entirely ready to have certain things removed. So, obviously a defective character could go in a lot of different directions, but defects of character aren't limited to just taking things, resentments, fear, jealousy, envy. It's also things like self-concept, self-abasement, self-criticism, being hard on ourselves, hating ourselves. Those are defects of character and shortcomings as well. In the next step, we're going to talk about shortcomings, but it's important to know or remember that Bill saw shortcomings and defects as the same thing. I'll talk a little bit about more in the 7th step about how they're different. But what we're talking about here is those things that are wrong with us, the things that we don't approve of, the things that were not the best in that moral inventory that we took, sort of the more immoral side of that moral inventory that we took, the things that we want to change that we don't like, maybe that we're ashamed of. So entirely ready. Let's say I'm angry at Bob, and Bob burned me years ago and stole something from me, or wrecked my house, or beat up a friend of mine, whatever. So I have an issue with Bob. Being entirely ready to have these things removed from me would mean that I'm willing to let Bob off the hook. Maybe the person that abused me as a child, am I willing to let them off the hook? Maybe the person I got in a fight with or something, or physically harmed me or robbed me, am I willing to let all these things go? Entirely ready is a large order. Let's say we're more of an angry person and we side on the side of being angrier as a person. Are we ready to not be angry? Do we believe that we can be a happy person? You know, we all know there's people who are so happy that we just want to go, can't possibly be that happy all the time, but they're happy, and they annoy us because they're so happy. The reason is because we want to be that happy. So we have a defect of character that limits us to a way that God might actually want us to be. So being entirely ready means I might have to be nice. I might have to be happy. I might have to show it. I might have to be selfless. Am I ready to do the work that it takes? Being entirely ready to have God remove these negative aspects of myself isn't necessarily just going to happen where I sit back and wait for it to occur in me. That would be God doing all the work. But having removed these defects, I think that Bill said that because he was trying to get the point across that we might not be able to fix them all. We might not be able to repair all those damages and all those injuries and all those things inside of us, those hurt spots. But that God could, if there's a major trauma or a harm in our heart where we were victimized somehow, that he could actually heal that and to let us not have to carry the weight of that anymore, to free the burden, to forgive the person who might have done something to us, that weight that I talked about earlier on in that prior step on our back, that we just carry around, to be able to set that down and to be free, to believe that we could be not anxious, to believe that we could be not depressed, or not a depressive person or an anxious person. That's entirely ready. Those are defective aspects of our character. Yeah, there's a lot of simple ones, like God help me not to steal. God help me to have power to be honest and not to lie. A lot of people in the program are familiar with the I can't, he can, so let him, to let God remove these things. We might not always know when it's time or when we're able to let go of certain things. Our anger sometimes is there to protect us, and it protects us from people that we need protection from. If we live in a hostile environment, maybe it won't leave until we leave that environment. Maybe God will help us leave that environment so that we can then let go of that thing, that anger and that fear that is distorting our perceptions of reality and our ability to be happy. The step doesn't say when God would be removing these defects of character. It just says that we're going to ask him, and then we're going to be patient and let it happen when it happens. Sometimes we don't even see it happen. Sometimes we look back, or we get in a situation and we handle it differently. We intuitively know how to handle a situation which used to baffle us. And we look back and we go, wow, that's different. That's changed. I'm not that way anymore. That's such an awesome part of recovery and even therapeutic process where a person can look and say, I'm not that guy anymore. I'm not that person that does that anymore. I don't lie like that anymore. I'm not a jealous person anymore. I'm not an envious person anymore. I'm not bitter anymore. So we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. The word all is in there. Not some of them, not the ones I'm willing to let go of, but getting to a point where we are ready to have all of them taken away. Doesn't mean they're going to all be taken away, but are you ready? Do you think you'd be okay without all of your defects of character? Would you be able to survive? I think if we want to have God remove our defects of character, we're going to have to be asking for it. Maybe it's a prayer that we say every night. Let's say for a second that we're really self-absorbed or self-centered, and we want to change that. Well, maybe we'll say a prayer. Maybe our sponsor will say, I want you to pray for other people, at least 5 other people every night before you go to bed. We need to think about other people before you go to bed. So we do that for a long while. And then maybe we're doing it during the day when we're not even praying. Maybe we're doing it at lunch and we're thinking about so-and-so and we hope they're okay. And then one day we turn around and we look around and we say, wow, I'm not as self-centered as I used to be. Is that God removing the defective character? We didn't actually go in there with a wrench and take a part out. It used to confuse me a little bit because I used to think that a defect was a broken part. A defect in a car, you would get a recall for that part, and then you would go in and get that part changed out to get a new part. Well, unless we're getting brain surgery, that part of us isn't going to be fixed any other way than God and maybe practice. But that practice part is not necessarily a part of the 6th step. This is about our relationship with God, and God's role in that came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity and help us get to a place. We have to do the footwork. You know, they say God will help you move mountains, but you better bring a shovel. This is the shoveling part and saying, God, please take this away. If I identify one, selfishness, God, please take this away. If I'm anxious, God, please help me to not feel anxious or afraid. These are things that we do, and then we pray for and do the footwork for, and then hopefully we look back one day and go, wow, it's not that way anymore. So that's just some stuff about the 6th step, something for you to think about. Definitely work them in order. I think there's some brilliance in the order that they're put in. This is the healing part. The 6th step is about us healing from the damage we did to ourselves. Yeah, the damage other people did too, but also some of the damage we did to ourselves. So again, like, share, where's it at over? I almost get the hands wrong in the video. Over here, and subscribe, and please feel free to post these wherever you like using the YouTube links. And I hope this helps. I hope you're making it through this period in our crazy world at this time. Sort of having God in your life is probably easier than not right now. I feel really bad for those people who can and for people who can't get to church when they want to. So best of luck to you. Subscribe. Listen to the other videos as well. Might want to start at the beginning. I have one on how the steps are structured, which is very helpful for a lot of people. So good luck to you, and I'll see you soon, or you'll see me soon. Thanks. Bye.